Welcome to Imperfect Momming. Our children are constantly looking to us for examples. The term role model doesn't quite cut it here. We are shaping their worldview with every move we make. You see, it's not in the lectures we give or moments where we are actively attempting to teach them. It's in the micro movements we make, the unconscious ways in which we navigate life. We are constantly teaching our children how to show up for themselves, their friends, their future partners, and even their future children. So what can we do to ensure we are raising thoughtful, compassionate, self-aware human beings? We have to become them ourselves. No one is perfect, but we can still all be better, and it starts with self-healing. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Imperfect Momming, Better Parenting Through Self-Healing. And today we have a very special guest, Sarah Salisott. And I practiced saying her last name about a dozen times before hitting record, just so I made sure to spell it or say it correctly. Welcome, Sarah. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's just one of those days right now as we're recording. School is almost over and I'm super excited. Of this half in, half out stuff. I'm over it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about you and what you do, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So I've been a foster parent for 5 years, and we fostered children ranging from 18 months to we adopted a 16-and-a-half-year-old. And through parenting children who come from hard places, I learned that there's not a lot of support for foster and adoptive parents and even biological parents of children who are in the system. And so I did a ton of research and a ton of learning. And if you can hear my dogs in the background, I apologize.
It's all right.
I put them in the other room, but clearly they're still upset.
It's COVID. There's no rules anymore.
Exactly. They're usually so quiet. But I went through the Parent Coach Institute and became a certified parent coach. So I work with foster, adoptive, and biological parents of children who are in foster care.
Got it. So I would imagine I've only had my own son. I've thought about fostering. I do have a friend who fostered to adopt. I've heard fostering stories that are just heart-wrenching of, you bond with a baby thinking that they're going to be yours, and then they don't end up being yours, and the pain in all of that. I have been a surrogate mom. I've had babies for other people. So I get that perspective of it. So besides, let's see, what question do I want to ask you? There's lots. So I know you said that you started because there wasn't the support. So what kind of support have you created for foster parents?
Absolutely. So I parent coach. So I work with families one-on-one and working through any of the struggles that they're currently having. And I found that a lot of struggles that children have can be mitigated by the parents doing work and the parents adjusting their perspective. So that's the basis of a lot of my parent coaching. I have been trained level 1 through the Theraplay Institute. So I do some parent-child work utilizing some Theraplay principles. And I also host a support group every other Wednesday evening. We just met yesterday, and that's a free group that anyone in the world can join.
Awesome. And we're going to have a link to that in the show notes, correct? I think maybe you sent that over. If you didn't, send it over.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So since that's the theme of the podcast is better parenting through self-healing, do you want to talk about some of the things, some of the mind shifts that you made to help you through your process to be able to help others through theirs?
Absolutely. When I first started fostering, our first placement didn't go well. we were placed with a child who needed a higher level of care than our home was licensed for. And ultimately, there was just really no support. There was no one. We reached out to workers. We said we need help. And they just kept, oh, you're just new foster parents. You have no idea what you're doing. And
That's helpful.
it's very helpful. And then the children went on a visit with their parent, and an incident happened on the way back to our house that the worker was like, oh, you're not making this up. I've never seen a child behave in this way before, and we have no idea how to help you. And so eventually
Also helpful.
it's also helpful. Exactly. And I just remember, I talk about it in my book, but I was driving around with this young child in my car, and he kept kicking the back of my seat. And you know the day, you're exhausted, you're tired, you've got nothing left, and he wouldn't stop kicking the back of my seat. And we were driving, and I tried all of my little distraction techniques and, all of that different stuff. I pulled over in a car dealership, and I just dug my heels in and said, we're not moving until you stop kicking my seat, which we all know how that played out. They just kept kicking my seat, and I just stood there getting more and more mad. And finally, I burst into tears. And that was what interrupted the cycle. And I called my spouse, and I was like, we have to do something different. Like, there has to be a different way to interact. And all of the books that are behind me, almost all of them are on parenting and parenting children who've experienced trauma. And I've read almost all of them once, quite a few of them twice. A lot of them have highlights in them. And I've just done as much research as I possibly can into the different ways that parents can respond to their children and interact with their children for a more successful parent-child interaction and for success for the child. And it works.
Yeah.
So we had a worker who said, you can't keep all this information to yourself. Like, you have to share this with other people. And so I went through the PCI and became a certified parent coach through the Parent Coach Institute. And I launched my business. And there are parents that tell me all the time, like, I didn't yell at my kids this week. And when they start coming to me, they're like, all I do is yell at my kids. And things along those lines where it's hugely impactful.
Yeah. I mean, as a parent who's yelled at my kid, I don't think that I ever had a moment where I realized, oh, I didn't yell at my kid today. Like, it wasn't so frequent that I had this awareness of, oh, it's stopped now. But I do know that now when it happens, it's not the norm. It's not here we go again. It's not beating myself up because I lost my ever-loving mind, because I don't lose my ever-loving mind anymore. Like, the most recent time was getting ready for school, and because school's not in session and it's only 2 days a week, like, we had a long period of time where we weren't doing it. So I've gotten out of my routines of what we did, getting up, going to school. And one of the things that my son needs in the morning is time. He needs time between eyes open and my mouth moving.
Sure.
And so that day we didn't. And okay, get up, get dressed, we got to go to school, we got 15 minutes, let's go, brush your teeth, get your clothes on, and I don't even know if I'm I'm probably exaggerating how I was, but I've been awake for an hour. That's part of my routine is I wake up by myself and do what I want for 60 minutes. And if that's something I want, I know that's something that he wants. Maybe not 60 minutes, but sometime. It takes me 15 minutes too. I just don't have anybody yapping at me, barking orders and telling me to do stuff. Anyway, now I've realized he's in a bad mood and I'm trying to cheer him up, which isn't that nice when people do that to you as an adult, like you're in a bad mood and somebody's trying to cheer you up, and by I think my fourth attempt, I'd actually stopped trying that he's not going to change his mind. It hadn't shifted my mood yet, but he wasn't shifting. And I said, okay, where's your tablet? I don't know. And just the tone of the I don't know was enough that I was like, you know what? You're going to bed earlier, and you like 8:30 is your bedtime now. You're not going to bed at 9:00. This is what's happening. So now I'm mad. And now I even feel bad because, okay, I get I know all the stuff that I just told you, but it's just, I don't know where I was going with that, but it's so few and far between that now when it happens, there's an analysis inside my head. And I probably analyzed it for 3 weeks, not in an obsessive way, just like thinking about it, like, okay, what created that situation? And the answer to that question changed 3 times.
Okay.
So it was like, first it reminded me of when my first husband, because he was that way. Well, my son's dad is that way too. Yeah. So there's some there. And then like, it reminds me of when he was a kid and and how much angst there was between him and me with just me learning who he was and him learning about life, and but that's not how I looked at it back then. So there was that trigger. And then it was like, oh, I think it was just the way he talked to me that I didn't like. And it's not just from him that I don't like that. It's from anybody. So I think that's an important part of the process too, to understand the first reason you might come up with might not be right.
Absolutely.
The second reason might not be right. The third reason might not be right. I may come up with another reason too. But I think the important thing about that is not beating yourself up over the fact that it happened, because that's not helping.
Right.
Yeah.
You perfectly described the first exercises from the book Parenting from the Inside Out. That is amazing. So if you're interested in this journey, I would take a look at the book Parenting from the Inside Out. It's written by Dan Siegel, and he's considered the father of interpersonal neurobiology. Brilliant, brilliant man. And I do a book study of that book. And the exercise that you just talked everyone through is the first exercise in that book about kind of finding out why you're getting heated up and why you're getting frustrated and looking for patterns, and ultimately, eventually working to change your responses. That's really cool.
Okay, so I have to say, I'm patting myself on the back right now because I have not read that book yet. It's on my nightstand to read, but I haven't read it yet. You and I talked about this in our pre-recorded call, that you do this book study, right?
Yep.
What's it called?
Book club, deep dive, or book study, or book club, whatever you want to call it.
It's just a word. It's just a label. But we've talked about this. I want to know the next time that you start, because I wanted to be a part of it, because I'm realizing that I do enjoy not just the reading, but the discussing of the books.
Absolutely.
So awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm like patting myself on the back because I don't know that I've perfectly described anything ever.
Well, you did today.
So I can
Yeah,
cross that off my list of things that I haven't done.
absolutely.
Awesome. So you mentioned you wrote a book. So tell us about your book.
I did write a book, and I don't have it near me, but the book is called Welcome to the Foster Lane, Parenting Advice from a Coach Who's Been There. It's very thin. I have them, if I lean the correct way, they're the blue books that are behind me,
Okay.
stacked up. But ultimately, it's the book that I wish I had when I started fostering.
Yeah.
It goes through a series of letting you know you're not alone. You're not alone in your struggles. You're not alone in needing professional supports. You are not alone in the fact that it can feel very isolating to be a trauma mama or trauma papa. So it goes through that. It talks about when things are good, they're really, really great, and finding those positive moments.
I understood. I make up words
Thank
all the
you.
time.
Thank you. I'm just like making things up. It's okay. And then there are some tips that I give that can really help, honestly, any parent connect in deeper ways with their child. And then kind of wrap up different things. And then I write a letter to all of the different parents, such as biological parents, kinship providers, foster parents, adoptive parents, parents of children that are a different race to them. And I provide a number of resources in the back of the book as well. It's a lot packed in a short little book.
It sounds like it. And what I love about short books is that I'm a mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really like sitting down and reading before I was a mom.
Sure.
But when you're after being a mom, it's a little on the difficult side sometimes to find that time
Right.
to read.
Mm-hmm.
Self-care is something that we talk about on this podcast quite a bit. And that I'm part of a lot of different mom groups, and I've seen a lot of people say, I used to read,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes me sad that I can't read anymore. And really, it's imperative that you continue to read, especially if that's your happy time. Like if
Mm-hmm.
losing yourself inside a novel, it was part of your self-care before being a parent, it should be part of your self-care after. And I love that you specifically bought, I mean, for those that are just listening and not watching, there's probably 50 to 75 books up there, if not 100. I'm not good at judging stuff,
It's a
but
lot.
it's a
It's a lot.
lot of books that she's read more than once. Like I usually
Mm-hmm.
don't read a book more than once. But the fact that you took the time to read and really dive in and then write the book that you wish you had is just incredible. And I used to be a writing coach. So that was what I kind of started with that first, where, we were helping other writers get going and get their book out. And that's a piece of the advice that's out there, is write the book that you wish you had. And so, shameless plug of my own book is, it just happens to be sitting right here. But
Excellent.
it's not necessarily the book that I wish that I had read, um, because I wasn't aware enough about the guilt that I was feeling as a parent. And, there's lots of things that we go through as parents that we're just really unaware of. And that's another reason I started the podcast, was to get this idea of let's improve ourselves, and improving ourselves starts with being aware
Mm-hmm.
and just getting to know ourselves and learning ourselves. And so my book is called Good Moms Don't, because each of the chapters is a rule that either I am breaking, or I've heard other moms breaking, of good moms don't do this.
Okay.
Right. And then
Mm-hmm.
that's the lie. And then the truth is the exception to that rule, because yes, it's a lie, but it's also like, okay, good moms don't work outside the home. That's something that a lot of moms feel guilty about,
Mm-hmm.
that they have to work outside the home. But what's the truth?
Mm-hmm.
Except when you have to, when you're providing for your kid, when you're a single mom, when you're whatever the case may be,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's okay. What if you want to?
There it is. Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
100%.
You
Yeah.
know, that's what I've been seeing a lot lately on these groups that I'm part of, is like, oh, does anybody else just feel not fulfilled being a stay-at-home mom? And it's like, me, I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have. I mean, I was always a work from home mom.
Yeah.
There's part of me that's like, oh, what would have happened? Um, you know, I started my direct sales business before I was a mom. I became pregnant, I think, like 9 months in, and he was a driving force, and being a stay-at-home mom was a driving force. But being a stay-at-home mom wasn't ever really important to me. It was something that I thought that a good mom does and that every kid wants. And at some point I realized I'm a stay-at-home mom, but I don't even have a stay-at-home kid. Like, he doesn't want to be home. He wants to be where the people are. He's so much like me. So he went into daycare a couple days a week,
Yeah.
you know? So it's like, you got to find the thing that works for you. And even as a foster parent.
Exactly.
Yeah. Especially as, I would imagine, especially as a foster parent, but yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's interesting because you're welcoming these children
yeah,
who are not necessarily like you
right.
and don't have all of the years necessarily of learning you and learning your family and learning your routines. And so I equate it to entering another like intimate partner relationship where you both have your own histories and you've got to figure out how to do it together
Yeah.
and how to cohabitate together, even though one of them might be, 2 feet tall or 6 feet tall. It's the same thing. And
It's,
I think a lot of people think like, well, they're coming into my home, they'll just assimilate into our way.
yeah.
And that is the recipe for trouble.
Yeah. Because there's trauma on top of it.
Hmm.
It's not just the relationship, but
Hmm.
since you called it, like a relationship, it's literally like Married at First Sight, like that show,
Exactly.
right?
Hmm.
So not only do you not know this person, but now you're committed to them. You can't
Exactly.
leave just because you don't get along, like,
For who knows how long.
for who knows how long.
It could be a week, it could be a year, it could be the rest of your life. And there's
Yeah,
no way to know from the get go.
right. Oh,
Hmm.
for real. It just gives me a totally new perspective, uh that, just opening my eyes to kind of what foster children are going through, but
Hmm.
also through what foster parents are going through. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that, because I don't know that I've had many conversations with parents who've adopted or foster parents. And I know some people, but never really dug into it with them.
Sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's a really interesting perspective. So, well, I appreciate the work that you do in
Thank you.
for these moms, and I love anybody that helps moms in any capacity. So, any piece of advice that you want to share with our listeners?
Yes. The piece of advice that I'll share with your listeners is at least once a day, join your child where they are,
Mm,
in their excitement, in their play, in their sadness, in their anger. Remove your lens of
mhm.
what they should be going through and just meet them exactly where they are. And this is true for an infant, and this is true for a 25-year-old. The more you can have those moments of meeting them on their side of the relationship, the stronger your relationship will be.
Yeah, I love that so much. And that's like, that even hits me at home, because you're not just removing your expectations of what they should be going through, but you're also taking your stuff off. Like, take your things off your shoulder and pause and be in the moment with them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really hard to do when it has to be intentional.
Absolutely.
It can't be accidental. It has to be
Mm-hmm.
intentional. And I know someone had recommended something called the I love you rituals. That wasn't you?
That wasn't me.
Yeah, but and I just Googled I love you rituals, and there's a website and they've got videos, and I only watched the first one, but it's that kind of makes me think of that too. Now I know you have about 1,000 books that you've read.
Mm-hmm.
Is there one, or did you mention it already, that you would highly recommend?
I'm going to recommend two.
Okay.
Because I already
You
recommended
rebel.
one, so I'd like to do another one. So the first one absolutely is Parenting from the Inside Out. I have it here just because I'm doing the book deep dive.
Yeah.
And if you do that, I recommend doing it with other people, just because there's so many exercises in each chapter, and it's really great to talk about it. And if you have a particularly hard past, I actually recommend you work through it with a mental health professional.
Mm.
And then the other book is also by Dr. Dan Siegel, and it's called The Power of Showing Up.
Mm.
And that book talks about attachment, and it talks about the fact that even if attachment isn't ideal from that first year of life, the biggest predictor of a child's success later in life is someone in their life showing up for them.
Mm.
And so it gives a really great message of hope. And then I'm going to be a super rebel, and I'm going to give a third one, which is Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah actually just released a book this month, and it's called What Happened to You? And it's kind of a conversation between the two of them, and it is absolutely spectacular. I'm on my second go of that one, and it is really good.
Okay, are you a speed reader or something?
I do a combination. I love to read, and I am a fast reader, and I also listen on Audible at a pretty fast pace. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I do listen to Audible. I listen to, is it Dan, what's his name?
Dr. Dan Siegel?
It's Dan Siegel. I listened to No Drama Parenting.
Oh, No Drama Discipline?
Yes,
That's
that one.
a good
No
one.
Drama Discipline. And I listened to that one on Audible
Okay.
in 8 hours, because I think it's an 8-hour book, and I just listened to it nonstop while doing other things.
Sure.
Because I'm not a sit and do nothing person. But I also bought the hard copy of it and then passed it on to another parent that was struggling. And I would like to get it back, but if I don't ever get it back, I know it's in good hands. But I'm
There's
a
a
really
workbook.
slow. Is there a workbook too?
There's a workbook that goes along with that book.
Might have to grab that.
Yeah.
I'm a really slow reader, so that's why I was like, are you a speed reader or something? Like, I read when I'm reading, I read every single word in a sentence. So I don't skim anything. I just to comprehend it, I have to read every single word. But that book was impactful for me because I was having drama discipline, to put it simply. And my oh so loving boyfriend, and I mean that legitimately, that he is oh so loving and super annoying sometimes, when he says stuff like, you're really into this personal development stuff, why not pick up a parenting book? And I'm like, fine. And so I just looked for discipline books, and No Drama Discipline came up. So really good marketing on his part by calling it that. And the thing that stood out for me from that book that I've really implemented is connect with your child first before the disciplining or the lecture or whatever, and connect with them first. And so I would say now every time he's activated, I ask him, do you want a hug? And 9 times out of 10, he says yes. And the 1 time out of 10 that he says no, he'll come back and get the hug later. It's amazing. And it calms him down. And this is a kid that's got a lot of big emotions that a lot of times he doesn't know what to do with. And the beautiful thing for me is that it deactivates me too. So,
absolutely. It helps you regulate.
Yeah.
If you're interested in that connecting principle, TBRI, Trust-Based Relational Intervention by Dr. Karen Purvis, would be fantastic. And that also gives really great strategies for those situations.
Perfect. I'll have to, now you gave me a list of books to read.
It's so many.
Which is the whole reason that I ask each of my podcast guests to give me a book is really, yes, I want my mommy listeners to read books, but I'm like, I want some too. I want to know what else has helped other people. So awesome. And where can they find you?
So I am on Facebook and Instagram under the Foster Lane Parent Coaching. And my website is more geared towards counties because typically counties hire me, but that website is thefosterlane.com. On there, you can sign up for the newsletter and get an excerpt and one of the tips from my book, and my online course is there. And then my book is available wherever you buy books. So
awesome. Perfect. And all of this is going to be in the show notes for your ease. And I've been reminded today that I should tell you where you can find me. I'm AlysiaLyons.com, ALYSIALYONS.com. And we are signing off. Have a great rest of your day, Sarah. Thank you for joining us. And
thank you, you too.
Continue to heal. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to Imperfect Momming. It's time for us to step up and realize that our power is not in trying to shape our children. Our power lies in shaping ourselves into the people we want our children to model themselves after. Don't just do it for your kids. Do it for yourself. When you become a more self-aware, compassionate, and confident person, you and everyone around you benefit. For more information about me and my work, visit AlysiaLyons.com. That's ALYSIALYONS.com. See you next time.